So we are live on abcnews.com and Yahoo News for an original series called Newsmakers, and we're happy to be joined here by Congressman Ron Paul. Congressman, thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
First question, when did you know that you wanted to become the President of the United States?
There was no precise moment. I mean, I've been interested in this projects, for a good many years. In '88, I ran. But at that time, it was a struggle because I was running in a third party. I didn't realize how biased the system was against anybody outside the mainstream, because we wouldn't get interviews like this if you're in third party. So I ran then. But it was real serious 4 years ago, but still the odds were great. But it was only this year, at the beginning of the year, that we all became aware, that is our organization and myself became aware that the country has finally come our direction. People were getting tired of the war. They were understanding that the Federal Reserve had a lot to do with the bailouts. The crisis had hit, and it's the kind of thing I had been talking about for 20 years. So that is when we got very serious about what we've been doing over all these years.
There was no moment of truth when you said, I can do that job. I know I can do it.
No, not really. That moment of truth was very gradual over 40 years, where when I first got into politics, I knew with certainty deep down in my mind and heart that the country was going in the wrong direction. That, of course, had a monetary issue. Once we removed any restraint on the Federal Reserve to print money, I was completely confident, still remains confident, that leads to big government spending, deficits, financial bubbles, and then corrections, and then destruction of production. And that's where we are today. Debt with no production, jobs are gone, but it has engulfed the whole world.
Now, you've got what Governor Branstad of Iowa called the boldest plan to cut federal spending.
Right.
$1 trillion in the first year, the elimination of 5 departments. You got plenty of critics out there, but I want you to explain why you think that drastic measure will actually help create jobs.
Because we've been spending too much and printing too much and borrowing too much for so long, and it destroyed the jobs. People see cutting $1 trillion as a negative. I see it as a positive. It's taking $1 trillion out of the hands of politicians and bureaucrats. I don't have a lot of respect for them, and I want to put it back in the hands of people who have more common sense. I also, a lot of the other candidates talk about taxes, and I do too. And Republicans, although we have different programs, most Republicans are against more taxes. Nobody wants to raise taxes. But I start one step back. I call spending a tax, because spending means it has to be paid for. And you can pay for it by raising taxes, borrowing money, or printing money, which dilutes the value of the money. If prices go up, and that's the inflation tax. So that's the big tax. So by cutting spending, I cut taxes. If you start one step back from just saying, well, we have government, we're not going to challenge our foreign policy, we're not going to challenge the entitlement system or the special interest system in government running education and schools and just on and on. No, we'll just sort of cut proposed increases 5 years from now, and we'll pretend and we'll try to convince the people in the country that we're really cutters. So no, it needs to be bold, because the mess we're in is bold. I mean, we've been going in the wrong direction for so long that tinkering on the edges won't help at all.
All right, let me give you a question. We've asked folks at abcnews.com and Yahoo to tell us what they wanted to ask you in an interview. And this is a question from Cal from Yahoo, and it's out there. He says, there are so many independents and Democrats who do like you, support your platform, but can't vote for you in these Republican primaries, many of them. Would you run as a third-party candidate?
I'm not going to do that. I'm not planning. No, I'm not having
You're
any
not planning?
plans. I have no plans to do that.
Not a no.
Somebody asked me the other day, why? Why do you say you won't plan to do that? Because I don't want to. No, and I'm in the middle of a hot campaign. So I want all the other candidates to be asked the same questions.
But you would answer the call if you didn't get the Republican nomination.
No, I'm not saying that at all. I'm just saying that I'm in the middle of a campaign. I'm campaigning very hard. I have no plans, no intention. And the reason why I have no plans, intention, because I just I don't want to do it.
All right. You're probably the most dramatically philosophical candidate. You're a profound libertarian. You ran for one. And I want to give you a quote from the other side. Elizabeth Warren, running for Senate in Massachusetts, got some attention with this quote, and I'd just like to read it to you and You tell me why she's wrong. She says there's nobody in this country who got rich on their own. Nobody, she says. You built a factory out there, good for you, but I want to be clear, you moved your goods to market on roads the rest of us paid for. You hired workers, the rest of us paid to educate. You were safe in your factory because of police forces and fire departments that the rest of us paid for. You don't have to worry that marauding bands would come and seize everything at your factory. Now look, you built the factory, turned it into something terrific. God bless. Keep a hunk of it. But part of the underlying social contract, she says, is you take a hunk of that and pay forward for the next kid who comes along. Why is she wrong?
Because she's a socialist. She wants the government to do all this. But the whole
Educate children is socialism?
Well, in a way, when the state runs things, that is a socialist idea that it should be collective. I preach homeschooling and private schooling and competition in schools. But what she forgets, she's right. By the use of force, the government comes with a gun, they take money from you, and they build a highway that incidentally you can use because you don't have any other choices. But the money had to come from productive effort. She's saying it's the government. Who's the government? The government created nothing. The government, only they can do is steal and rob people with a gun and forcibly transfer wealth from one person to another. You take the building of our railroads in our early history. They were all subsidized, and most of them went bankrupt, except for one person, Hill, who built the Northwestern Railroad out to Seattle. He didn't get one penny from the government. He was one of the very, very few, if not the only one, of the new railroads that didn't get any money from the government and didn't go bankrupt. So I would say the opposite is true. Yes, there are successes, and we are forced to use some of the government programs, but it's inefficient. It costs more money, and it was done by transferring wealth, not by creating wealth. Governments are always destructive in the production of wealth. They pretend that they're going to take care of us, like, well, the government's going to give us all a house. Look at what happened to the house. The big guys all got bailed out who ripped us off, and with all the derivatives and the banks, they're still being protected. Middle class lost it, and they lost their houses. So her whole argument is absolutely wrong.
So in Ron Paul's ideal America, there'd be no public highways, no public education, there'd be no public air traffic control system. There'd be no public protections for workers in coal mines, et cetera.
Well, that's an overstatement because it might be a lot better because a lot of those functions can be picked up. I think France has a private air traffic controllers. I mean, it's not like it's strange. The thing of it is, do you want government's inefficiency to do these programs, or do you want another source to do it? So that's a big difference. So I think it's how you want to bring it about. And I think private sources, you take roads. There's nothing in our Constitution that says Texas can't build roads. But Eisenhower, when he built the interstate highway system, he knew that he was on the edge of violating the Constitution. He says, well, we'll justify it because it's necessary for national defense purposes. So there was a respect for this at one time. But now everything, federal government can do everything at all. But there's no prohibitions against government schools. But there is no authority for the federal government to have a Department of Education and mess up our educational system. All they did was give us debt. Here we are graduating kids that don't know where they're going to get a job. They owe $1 trillion. Their education is poorer than ever, and the costs have skyrocketed. It's a total failure. See, we are witnessing now the failure of 50, 60 years of economic planning. The Keynesian model is a complete flop. And that is why we're getting a lot more attention, because our approach is completely different. And their failure is staring them in the face. And they have a long way to go to clean up the mess they've created.
It is a lot different. And one of the problems in Washington right now that people are very frustrated about, gridlock. So are you a purist? Do you compromise on these, or would you go to Washington and President Paul would be my way or the highway?
See, I don't compromise, but I work with coalitions, which is a big difference. So some of my closest allies in Washington are progressives, because they like a different approach to foreign policy. They might think we ought to protect habeas corpus and not have secret prisons and torture. So I work with them, but then I work real close with conservatives who like to believe in the free market. But, yeah, there are certain things. Life is precious, so I think that the Declaration of Independence was a rather purist document. Inalienable rights. You have a right to your life and your liberty. I just go one step further. You should have the right to keep the fruits of your labor too.
Another question from our online colleagues. This was also from Yahoo. Let me phrase it this way. Polls show that a majority of Americans, a substantial majority of Americans, believe that taxes on the wealthy should be increased. Why do you in the Republican Party side with the millionaires and against the will of the people? Well,
I try to sort all that out because I'm pretty critical of the wealth of a lot of millionaires and billionaires because they've ripped us off. They got they got the benefits, they got the bailout, they enjoyed the benefits of the bubble. They get contracts from government. They're part of the military-industrial complex. The banking system is in bed with the government, so they don't deserve this money. They not only should be taxed, but they should have all their benefits removed. But if you're productive and you're producing jobs and you're rich, because the consumer voted for your product and made you rich because you made an honest living, gave them a good product at the right price, they shouldn't be punished. If we don't sort the two out, it's going to be very destructive. So, yes, some of that is true, but we better be a little bit wise on exactly who gets the punishment here.
On foreign policy, as you said, you're different from most Republicans. Bring the troops home, you say, and not just from Iraq and Afghanistan, but from other countries in the Middle East, Asia, Europe. If an American ally were under attack, Israel from Iran, South Korea from North Korea, Taiwan from China, would President Ron Paul honor our treaty obligations and defend our allies from that aggression by sending troops if necessary?
Treaties cannot amend our Constitution. So because 2 generations ago somebody signed a piece of paper and said no matter what happens to Taiwan or South Korea
or Israel,
no matter what happens, that you can commit the next generation to automatic war. That's immoral and it's not constitutional. But let's say it is a serious problem. Somebody posed, what if a foreign country closed down the Panama Canal and, what would you do? Well, I would look at it very carefully, study it, find out how serious it is. And if it looks like it's a threat to our national security, I would go to the U.S. Congress, which is to the people, and say, this is very serious, and we need to make a collective decision on whether this is a threat to our national security, and if it is, you declare war and you win it and you get it over with. But I would not go to war on my own issue. I would never go to the NATO or the United Nations and take my marching orders from an international body. That is wrong, and that's why we've been fighting perpetual wars. That's why we've been in Afghanistan for 10 years, and that's also the reason we've never declared a war since World War II, and we haven't won a war either since that time, and it has led to our bankruptcy.
All right, we're almost out of time here with Yahoo, but we're reaching a different audience. We want to have some fun. This is a lightning round. I'll just pop off some questions, quick answers. Worst job you ever had?
The worst job? I've always enjoyed my jobs, but I'd have to think about it. I don't have any worst jobs. I've always enjoyed every job I've done.
TV guilty pleasure. Is there something you watch on TV that's a guilty pleasure, you think?
No, I only watch news broadcasts from ABC.
That's it. Favorite junk food?
Favorite junk food? Oh, well, I've kidded about that. I don't think it's junk food because it tastes so good. I am very soft on liking chocolate chip cookies.
Right on. BlackBerry or iPhone? What do you prefer?
Well, I use neither. I use the iPod right now. iPad is what I carry and use. And then I have a small little cell phone.
Happiest you've ever been other than your wedding day or the birth of your children? Happiest day?
See, there's excitement and happiness is pretty well separate. If you separate it from these personal things, like family, I think it was the independence I got after college, medical school, residency, military, and I came in and opened up my medical practice here, and I was responsible to taking care of my patients. And to me, it was very nice to know that I had been trained, I worked a long time, and I was finally ready to assume that responsibility and make a living for myself.
Last one, theme song.
Theme song.
Do you have a theme song?
Born Free. And I've said that across the top of my head, but it is a pretty good song. I like that.
Well, Congressman Paul, thanks very much, and good luck on the trial.
Thank you.